Hey you, welcome back to the deep dive.
Glad to have you with us.
Today we're looking into something pretty strange. It's a whole collection of accounts about unexplainable phone calls.
That's right. We've got source material detailing these really bizarre moments where, a simple phone call becomes something else entirely.
Yeah, sometimes chilling, always kind of unresolved.
So our mission here is basically to unpack these stories. We'll look at the details from the sources you shared and just see what we can make of them.
Okay, let's unpack this then. We're talking about everything from like impossible wrong numbers maybe to calls possibly linked to people vanishing, even years of harassment.
It really covers a wide spectrum.
It does. It's how this everyday tech, the phone, sometimes connects us to, well, the unexplained. Let's start with one from not too long ago, 2015. USC student Michael Andrews. He's at a party.
Right, and the source says he and his roommate Steve were heading out together.
Yeah, but Steve forgets his phone back in the dorm.
Happens all the time, right? They figure, okay, whatever, we'll grab it later, no big deal.
Exactly. But then, later, Michael's at the party, his phone rings, he checks it.
And it's Steve's number calling him.
Which is immediately weird because, Steve supposedly doesn't have his phone.
So Michael answers, thinking maybe Steve went back for it or something.
With the audio, the source describes it as just like heavy static.
Yeah.
Really bad connection.
Almost deliberately distorted, perhaps.
Yeah. And through this static, he hears what sounds like Steve's voice saying, "Come back to the room." Just those words.
And then the call cuts out, lasted maybe 15 seconds, the source says.
So naturally, Michael's thinking, okay, something's wrong. He feels this urgency.
He leaves the party right away, heads back to the dorm.
He's trying to call Steve, text him on the way back. No answer.
Gets to the room, opens the door.
And Steve's not there.
But his phone is, right there on the bed.
Yeah, exactly where Steve left it. And the screen's lit up, showing Michael's missed calls and texts.
Okay, so far, maybe a bit strange, but then Steve comes back about an hour later.
And he's like, why'd you leave the party? Totally confused.
Michael tells him about the call, the static, the voice.
And Steve is adamant. He says, I never called you. I never went back for my phone. It's been here the whole time.
And this is where the text side, according to the sources, just doesn't add up.
Right. Michael's phone log clearly shows a call received from Steve's number. 15 seconds long at that specific time.
But when they checked Steve's phone, nothing. No record of any outgoing call to Michael that evening. Zero.
So the call happened on Michael's end, but not on Steve's.
Seems that way. And the source mentions the phone company tried to trace it. They couldn't figure out where the call Michael received actually came from. It didn't seem to originate from Steve's phone or line.
And no sign of anyone else in the room, like for a prank?
Nope. They checked. Nothing. So you've got Michael hearing Steve's voice from Steve's number.
But the phone itself has no record of making the call. It's a direct contradiction.
Exactly. The tech just doesn't match the experience. That's what makes it so baffling based on the documentation.
Okay, let's shift gears. We're going way back now, 1970. South Lake Tahoe, California. A nurse named Donna Lass.
Right. She worked at a first aid station and a casino there.
The story starts when two people, her boss and her landlord, they both get a phone call.
From the same guy, apparently. An unidentified man.
And this man tells them both the same thing. Donna had a family emergency, had to leave town suddenly, won't be back for a bit.
But her boss, thankfully, felt something wasn't quite right about it. Seems suspicious.
So he calls Donna's mom, just to check.
And the mom says, no, I haven't heard from Donna. There's no family emergency I know of.
Okay, so red flags immediately, the story's a lie.
Right. So investigators check her apartment. Her car's there, parked outside. But Donna's gone.
And they find her work logbook from her last shift.
With an unfinished entry. Like she was interrupted mid-sentence or mid-task.
Creepy. So months pass, no sign of Donna.
Then, the San Francisco Chronicle gets a postcard. This is, peak Zodiac Killer time.
Oh, right. And this postcard is attributed to the Zodiac.
And the sources say it contained hints, suggesting the Zodiac's 12th victim was buried somewhere near Lake Tahoe.
Given Donna vanished from Tahoe, the connection seems obvious.
Exactly. Detectives investigating her disappearance jumped on this. They thought maybe this postcard held the key.
Did it have clues? Like a map or something?
It reportedly had symbols, cryptic phrases. They tried to decipher them, figure out a location, led to massive searches around Tahoe.
But they found nothing.
Nothing. And here's the thing the sources point out that complicates the Zodiac theory.
What's that?
The Zodiac wasn't known for burying his victims. He usually left them where they fell, often in public or easily discoverable places, hiding a body, burying it meticulously in the mountains. It didn't really fit his known pattern.
Huh. So maybe it wasn't the Zodiac.
It raises that question. If he wasn't the killer, then who made those initial calls? The one setting up the fake story for Donna's absence.
Right. The caller is still unidentified.
Exactly. And Donna Lass herself, she's still missing. The calls started the investigation, pointed fingers, but ultimately didn't lead to finding her or the truth. That initial deception remains a mystery.
Okay, let's jump forward again. 2008, rural Minnesota. A 19-year-old, Brendan Swanson.
Yeah, college student. Driving home late one night.
His car goes off the road, ends up in a ditch on some dark rural road.
He's stuck, alone. So he does what anyone would do. He calls his parents for help.
Makes sense. So his parents head out to get him.
But it's dark, it's rural Minnesota. Finding the exact spot is proving difficult. They can't quite locate him based on his descriptions.
So they stay on the phone with him, right? Trying to figure it out together.
Yeah, for a long time. The source says the call lasted over 45 minutes. Brendan's trying to describe landmarks, what he sees.
He mentioned seeing lights, didn't he? From a town.
Right. He thought he saw lights from a town nearby and decided to start walking towards them, staying on the phone with his dad the whole time.
Okay, and then?
Then, while he's talking to his dad, describing things, he suddenly yells out.
What did he yell?
According to the source, "Oh shit!"
Just like that.
Just like that. And immediately after he yelled it, the line went dead.
Oh, wow. That's chillin'.
That was it. The last anyone ever heard from him.
And they searched.
Massively. Hundreds of volunteers, dogs, law enforcement combed the area around the ditch, the roads.
But they only found the car.
Only the car. Brendan Swanson was gone. Vanished.
So the question is just, what? What did he see? What happened in that split second after he yelled?
That's the agonizing core of it, isn't it? What caused that sudden fear?
Yeah.
And how did he disappear so completely right after that call cut off? The phone was his lifeline, and it just stopped right at that critical moment.
Leaving just that final terrified word hanging in the air.
Precisely. A complete mystery tied to that last moment of communication.
Okay, let's move to a different kind of call. This one comes from a Reddit user, Stacey Kolupski, about her brother.
Right. This involves a pattern of calls, really disturbing ones.
Her brother starts getting these calls every single night, like clockwork.
Yeah, the source says always between 2 and 3 a.m., very specific timing.
And when he answers, it's not a person.
No. Stacey described it as a hellish-sounding noise.
Hellish? Like what?
Like, intense static mixed with what sounded like screaming, horrible sounds.
Every night. Oh, man.
Yeah. After about a month of this, he's understandably freaked out, decides he has to stop it. So he changes his cell number.
Did that work?
For about a week, yeah. The call stopped. He probably thought, okay, problem solved.
Why?
But then they started again. Same time, 2, 3 a.m. Same awful screaming static noise on the new number.
Whoa. Okay, that's weirder. Did he try calling the number back?
He did. The source mentions he backdialed it once and apparently reached some confused old man who had no idea what he was talking about, denied making any calls.
So he changes his number again.
He goes further. He cancels his contract with that phone company entirely. Switches carriers, gets a completely different company, totally new number, really trying to break the connection.
Surely that must have worked.
You'd think so. But after a little while, they started again. Same time, same sound, on the third number, with a different company.
Okay, this is starting to sound less like a technical glitch and more like something else.
It really does. It's like whatever this was, it wasn't tied to the number itself, but somehow to him having an active phone line. He tried backdialing this latest number too, got another random person who knew nothing. He was terrified.
I bet. So how did it finally stop? Or did it?
Well, something did stop them, but not in a good way. According to Stacey's account, her brother lost his job. Couldn't afford his phone bill.
So his phone got disconnected.
Yeah. And once the line was dead, the call stopped.
Okay. So it was tied to the active line. But wait, there's more, isn't there?
There's a final twist. Sometime later, after his phone was off and the calls had ceased, Stacey's mom gets a weird message on their home phone landline.
Don't tell me.
Stacey listened to it, recognized it immediately. It was the same screaming static.
No way. You jumped to the house phone.
apparently. They played it for her brother, who was horrified. They tried calling the number that left the message.
Yet.
Just got a recording. This number has been disconnected.
And after that?
Nothing. The calls, the messages, they never came back after that one instance on the home phone.
Wow. So it's like this digital haunting almost. Followed him across numbers, carriers, stopped when his line died, then made one last jump to a family line before vanishing.
That's essentially what the account describes. It really defies simple explanations. Technology as a vector for something deeply unsettling and persistent.
Okay, let's shift now to something that went on for a very long time, almost a decade of harassment. This starts in 1983, Washington, D.C. A restaurant owner named Bashir Khaushaki.
Right, successful guy. But in 83, his life apparently turned into a nightmare.
Because of phone calls.
Non-stop threatening calls.
Yeah.
Multiple times a day, sometimes dozens, day after day.
For how long?
The sources say this went on for nearly 10 years. A full decade of this torment.
That's insane. Who was doing it?
Well, the caller, or callers, started using a particular voice. They'd imitate a little girl.
A little girl's voice making threats. That's incredibly creepy.
Yeah. It led investigators to give the caller the nickname Lanfont, which is French for the child.
And it was just him getting these calls.
No, that's part of what made it so insidious. It expanded. Anyone connected to Khaushaki started getting harassed too. His wife, who was pregnant at the time, other family members, even employees at his restaurants.
Spreading the psychological pressure.
Exactly. Making his entire world feel unsafe.
And it wasn't just calls, right? The source mentioned something else.
Yeah, there were physical incidents too. Like, he visited his sister in Philadelphia and someone scratched the Star of David all over his car, suggesting maybe some kind of hate motive, though it was never proven who did it or definitively linked to the calls.
The pressure must have been immense.
Unbearable. The sources state Khaushaki eventually suffered a complete mental breakdown from the constant stress and fear.
He had to be hospitalized.
Yes, he committed himself to a psychiatric ward. But here's the really chilling part.
Right.
Even while he was in the hospital, the Lanfont calls didn't stop. They kept calling his restaurant.
Unbelievable. Did they ever figure out who it was? The FBI got involved, right?
Yes, the FBI started tracing the calls because it was so extreme and persistent. And their findings were really something.
What did they find?
They found the calls weren't coming from just one phone. They were coming from lots of different payphones.
Okay.
But not just randomly. They were coming from different locations, oftentimes so closely together or even overlapping. It was physically impossible for one person to be making all those calls, hopping between payphones that quickly across town. No way.
So, it wasn't one person.
That was the conclusion. Lanfont wasn't an individual. It was a coordinated plot, a group of people working together.
A group effort just to harass this one guy.
Apparently. The goal seemed to be, according to the sources, to literally drive him insane through this relentless phone campaign.
Why? What was the motive?
That's the biggest unanswered question. The sources say the motive was never discovered. Why multiple people would conspire for a decade to psychologically destroy Bashir Khaushaki, nobody knows. Just this chilling, coordinated technological terror with no apparent reason.
Wow. Okay, let's go even further back. 1931, London. William Wallace, insurance agent, keen chess player.
Right. And the key event here starts at his chess club.
He gets a message there.
Yeah.
Phone message.
Exactly. Delivered to the club. Supposedly from someone wanting to buy insurance. Sets up a meeting for the next evening, 7:30 p.m. at a specific address. Business prospect.
Okay. Sounds normal enough. So the next night, Wallace goes.
Travels across town to the given address for the 7:30 meeting.
Duh.
The address doesn't exist. It's a fake. He realizes it's a prank or a wild goose chase. So he heads home.
And when he gets back home,
he finds his wife, Julia. She's been beaten to death in their home.
Oh my God. So the phone call. It was clearly to lure him away, right? So the killer could get to his wife.
That seems like the obvious conclusion. The caller is the prime suspect.
But that's not what the police thought.
Well, according to the sources, the police developed a different theory. A shocking one. They started suspecting Wallace himself.
Wallace? How? He had the message, the trip.
Their theory was that Wallace faked the message, called the chess club himself or had someone do it for him to create an alibi.
An alibi for what?
For killing his wife. They proposed he killed Julia, then left, went on this hour-long streetcar journey for the fake meeting, discovered the address was fake, and came back to find the body.
But did the timing work for that?
The sources argue strongly that it didn't. They state it was completely impossible based on the timeline. the time needed for him to commit the murder, travel, realize the address was fake, and return. It just didn't fit with the estimated time of death.
So the alibi, even if self-made, seemed solid based on time.
According to the analysis in the sources, yes. But despite that,
The jury found him guilty,
initially, yes. Astonishingly,
but it didn't stick.
no. The Court of Criminal Appeal reviewed it. They looked closely at that timeline issue the prosecution presented.
And they overturned it.
Immediately, Wallace was freed. But the murder remained unsolved.
So who did it? Was the caller ever found?
Never identified. The sources do mention another suspect lingered, a former employee of Wallace's. Apparently, this guy needed an alibi for something else that night and was reportedly seen looking suspicious, bloody gloves, hosing down his car. But nothing was ever proven.
So that initial phone message, meant to seem like business, becomes the entire hinge point of a murder, a wrongful conviction, and an enduring mystery.
Precisely. A single call with devastating consequences and lingering questions.
Okay, here's one that starts really mundane. Just wrong numbers. This story comes from Jason Alexander.
Right. His family, for a while, kept getting calls on their home phone for someone named Tanya.
Same last name, apparently.
Yeah, and a common first name. So initially, just an annoyance. Wrong number. It happens.
And eventually the call stopped.
They did. The family moved across town years later. Phone books became less common. People used cells more. The calls for Tanya just faded away. They basically forgot all about it. Until about 4 years after they moved. 4 years after the call stopped. Jason's driving home one day.
And he sees an accident.
A bad one. Right at the turnoff for his house. He described it as pretty grisly. A car was actually wrapped around the signpost there.
The signpost with the house numbers. Including his.
Exactly. The pole displaying directions and numbers for the houses down that way, including his own address.
Okay. Weird coincidence.
Gets weirder. A few days later, Jason gets a call from the police.
About the accident.
Yes. The officer asks him if a woman named Tanya is at his house.
Tanya. The name from the old wrong numbers.
The very same. The police explain that Tanya's car was the one crashed around that signpost. She was gone from the scene, vanished after the wreck.
And they're calling him because her car was found near the sign with his address on it.
That seems to be the connection they were making, likely checking addresses displayed on the pole. Jason, of course, tells them he doesn't know any Tanya, except for those weird wrong numbers years ago at their old house.
Did he ever hear what happened to her?
No. According to the source, after that one call from the police, he never heard anything more about Tanya or the case.
So, it's just this bizarre convergence. Old wrong numbers for Tanya stop. Years later, a woman named Tanya crashes her car at the sign, displaying his new address, and disappears.
It's the connection across time and location that's so unsettling. A random wrong number pattern seemingly echoing years later at a specific related physical spot tied to a disappearance. Was it just a massive, chilling coincidence? Or something stranger linking those calls to that location? The source leaves it hanging.
Yeah, that's deeply strange. Okay, one last case. This involves a disappearance back in 1965, Florida. A young woman named Judith Hyams.
Right. Coral Gables. She was pregnant, recently divorced, then she vanished.
What did the initial investigation find?
Her car was found abandoned, way up in Atlanta, Georgia, and there was blood in the backseat.
Sounded good.
No, the sources say investigators learned she'd allegedly planned to get an illegal abortion. She was supposed to meet a Hungarian doctor, George Haidu.
And did they find him?
They charged him with conspiracy related to her disappearance. But he skipped bail, fled the U.S., vanished.
So with him gone, the case went cold.
For 25 years. Just sat there unresolved.
Until 1990, when something happened.
Right. The source says the case was suddenly rejuvenated by a series of, quote, bizarre phone calls.
Okay, what kind of call?
The first one was a message left for the police captain who originally handled the case, Chuck Smith. The message claimed to be from a radio host in Omaha, Nebraska, saying he had info on Judith Hyams.
So Smith called him back?
He did. But the radio host was totally confused, said he never called Smith, knew nothing about the case, denied everything.
Weird. Like a phantom message.
Seemed like it. Then, soon after, Smith gets a second anonymous call. This one claims Judith Hyams is alive and well, living in Omaha.
Omaha again. Didn't Smith just say he'd been there?
Exactly. He'd recently given a lecture at the police academy in Omaha, so he thought maybe this was some kind of prank related to his visit, someone messing with him.
Makes sense. But there was a third call.
Yes. This caller claimed to be an FBI informant. said they'd met Dr. Haidu, the fugitive doctor, in Hungary.
Okay, that sounds potentially useful.
And this caller provided an old phone number for Dr. Haidu. Smith had it checked. And it was a legitimate old number for the doctor. It actually checked out.
So that call had real info mixed with the informant claim.
Yeah.
Very confusing.
Totally. You've got phantom calls, claims she's alive, claims about the fugitive doctor with one verifiable detail. Smith was baffled.
So what did he do?
He decided to take the whole strange story, the disappearance, the weird calls public. He went on the TV show Unsolved Mysteries.
Okay. Did that generate leads?
It generated something. Soon after the episode aired, Captain Smith received an anonymous letter.
Not another call. A letter.
A letter, and according to the source, this letter confirmed what many had suspected all along.
That she died during the abortion.
Yes, it stated Judith had died during the procedure and her body was disposed of in a watery grave.
Which provides a grim but logical explanation for her disappearance.
It does. It seems to tie up that part of the mystery, potentially.
But it doesn't explain the calls, does it?
Not at all. That's what the source emphasizes. Even if the letter explained Judith's fate, it leaves the bizarre phone calls completely unaccounted for. Why did those start 25 years later? Who made them? Why the mix of weird and maybe real info?
And the letter writer was anonymous too.
Yes. The callers, the writer never identified. Dr. Haidu was never found. Judith's body was never recovered. So you have a plausible explanation for the disappearance, but this overlay of utterly strange, unexplained communication decades later that doesn't seem to fit.
Another layer of mystery on top of the original tragedy.
Exactly. Why the elaborate, confusing calls if the end result was tragically simple?
So quite a journey through these accounts.
Yeah.
From, tech glitches that seem impossible.
To calls directly linked with crime, disappearances.
Years of targeted torment, mysterious messages decades later, all starting with a phone call.
And the common thread, really, running through all these sources is the unanswered questions. The who, the why, the what happened next. Moments where communication technology seemed to open a door to, well, something deeply inexplicable.
These are the stories documented in the materials we reviewed, leaving these gaps.
Yeah, they leave you wondering.
So here's something to think about as we wrap up. Today, everything's tracked. Texts, calls, emails. There's a digital footprint for almost everything.
It's true. Communication is rarely anonymous anymore.
But these older stories, they remind us that for a long time, the telephone was different. It could be this completely anonymous link. A voice out of nowhere, untraceable. And sometimes, maybe the most unsettling connections, the most disturbing messages, are the ones that arrive without a return address, leaving behind only questions that maybe no amount of technology could ever really answer.
They certainly highlight that enduring power of the unknown, sometimes delivered right into your ear.
Definitely gives you pause. Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into these strange and unsettling phone calls. Hope it gave something to chew on.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in.
We'll talk to you next time. Goodbye for now.